Hello everyone. Back again with film recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap one of the thriller mystery films from 2018, titled In Darkness. Before we get to the storyline, I'd like to wish everyone a happy and great day. Without further ado, let's get straight to the storyline. The movie opens with our blind protagonist, Sophia, performing as a pianist in an orchestra. After finishing her work, she heads home, and stops by a cafe next to her building. Sophia overhears a news story there recounting how, between 1992 and 1995, over 10,000 people were killed, and millions displaced during the Bosnian War. The news also mentions Zoran Radic, a former Serbian war criminal turned philanthropist. It turns out he's now facing accusations of orchestrating an arms dealing and human trafficking operation. Upon returning to her building, Sophia comes across her neighbor, Veronique, who lives upstairs. Sophia cheerfully compliments her scent, revealing her sharp sense of smell. Veronique then thanks her for performing at her father's event, and asks if she was comfortable with it. In response, Sophia claims that her dad is ill, and needs the money, so she doesn't care about anything else. Sophia then asks about the name of her perfume, but Veronique responds that it's a secret. Later on, Sophia is playing the piano in her apartment, when she's distracted by loud noises coming from upstairs. She soon overhears Veronique and someone else having an intense argument, but she ignores the noises and decides to go to sleep. She then has vivid nightmares of her childhood, where someone locked her in a wardrobe to protect her. When she wakes up, she again hears Veronique arguing upstairs. The next day, as Sophia returns home from work, she slips on the stairs and injures her hand. Sophia grabs the thing she stepped on and discovers a woman's shawl, which she proceeds to smell. She then checks her mailbox, where she discovers a small glass vial containing liquid, and then she proceeds to smell the shawl again. She later goes to the basement to throw out the trash, and takes the elevator back to her apartment. At ground floor, a terrified-looking Veronique suddenly enters the elevator with her, being chased by a man. A concerned Sophia asks what's going on, but Veronique reassures her that she's fine. Before parting ways at Sophia's floor, Veronique suddenly comes close to Sophia and tells her to look after it for her, and also reveals that her secret perfume's name is Liquid Gold. Afterward, while in her room, Sophia hears Veronique arguing with someone at her apartment upstairs, before suddenly laughing like a maniac. And then all of a sudden, we then notice that Veronique has fallen from her balcony and is lying dead on the street. Not long after, some cops arrive at Sophia's apartment and inform her of the tragedy. A detective named Oscar Mills asks about her relationship with Veronique, so Sophia responds that she didn't know Veronique very well and rarely spoke with her. When Mills asks Sophia if she heard anything from upstairs earlier, she denies it, claiming she was wearing headphones at the time. In another scene, we meet a guy named Mark, who was chasing Veronique earlier in the elevator. He is sitting in a car with his sister, Alex, looking very distraught. Alex then requests the USB drive that was supposed to be with Veronique, but Mark claims she didn't have it. Hearing this, his sister urges him to go back to the apartment and search for it. We also find out that it was Zoran Radic who sent them on this mission to kill Veronique. However, a worried Mark mentions that there was a woman in the elevator who saw him, so Alex urges him to get rid of her. The scene then cuts to the morgue, where Detective Mills arrives with a doctor. The doctor reveals that the evidence suggests Veronique killed herself, as there are no signs of a struggle. However, they also learn that she recently got a nose job, and dyed her hair just a week ago. The detective wonders why anyone would go through such trouble if she was planning to kill herself. The next day, we see Sophia at the orchestra, where she's struggling to concentrate. On her way home, she hears the news about Zoran Radic again, and it is shockingly revealed that he is Veronique's father, and has just left the morgue after identifying her body. However, people are not treating him sympathetically, as Radic is a widely despised figure. Later, when Sophia arrives at her apartment, we notice that Mark has been waiting for her with a gun. But as he observes her, he quickly realizes that she is blind. In the bathroom, Sophia hears a noise outside. She then quickly opens the door, but Mark is nowhere to be found. Sofia notices her front door is open, meaning the man is already gone. Elsewhere, Mills receives a call from the autopsy doctor, who informs him that Veronique was 12 weeks pregnant. This surprises the detective, and he asks the doctor not to tell anyone about this. The scene then shifts to the evening, where Radic is holding a gathering in honor of his daughter's death. Mark is also there with Alex, and reveals that he couldn't find the USB anywhere in the apartment, but Alex is confident that it is still in the building. Mark then shows her some ultrasound images he found, which reveal that Veronique was pregnant. Upon learning this, the woman tells him not to get upset, and states that the baby probably wasn't his. At this moment, Sofia also arrives at the party, and sits at the piano to play. Radic then delivers a speech, saddened by the loss of his daughter. He says that despite the grief, he is willing to dedicate his focus to his charitable organization, which works on helping poor war refugees. Following the speech, Sofia begins to play a sad piece on the piano. This catches Radic's attention, and after the performance, he asks how she knew about this tune. Sofia responds that she learned it from Veronique, and that they were neighbors. Radic is surprised to learn this, so he takes her to his office, while Alex and Mark watch in surprise. In his office, Radic offers a glass of champagne to Sofia. He claims that his daughter was a troubled woman, especially during the last days of her life, even though Sofia claims that she was very kind to her. She reveals that Veronique once asked her to play this particular tune, as her dad used to hum it to her as a child. At this moment, Alex arrives to interrupt the meeting, so Radic excuses himself to talk to her. During this time, Sofia takes out the vial of liquid she has, which turns out to be poison. She attempts to pour it into Radic's drink, but accidentally drops it on the ground. Alex, on the other hand, asks Radic to show his grief in front of people, displaying that he has feelings, instead of trying to seduce a blind pianist. Soon, he returns to Sofia, prompting her to quickly cover the vial with her feet. Radic says their meeting must end for now, but he would love to see her again. Sofia agrees, but before she leaves, she discreetly crushes the vial and drops her champagne glass to cover up the broken vial. Later, Sofia senses someone is following her as she heads home, and it turns out to be Mark. And not long after, she enters a dark alley, where a group of perverted men begin harassing her. And then, Mark surprisingly comes to her rescue, and fights off the thugs. Afterward, the two head to a nearby cafe. Mark reveals that he works for his sister, who runs a security consulting firm. Sofia then talks about how a woman above her apartment passed away this week, and she's still shaken by it. She also shows him Veronique's shawl, and claims that she can still smell her. When Mark asks if she heard what happened that day, Sofia says no because she was wearing headphones. She then thanks Mark for saving her and prepares to leave. But outside the cafe, she asks her cafe musician friend to play a specific piece of music if he ever encounters Mark. The next morning, Sofia has a horrible nightmare about her childhood again, where her family was killed by someone, and her house was burned, but she was saved by a man. Later, while playing the piano, she recalls the last time she met Veronique, and how she slipped something into her pocket, which turns out to be the USB drive Mark has been looking for. Just then, Sofia is visited by Detective Mills, who claims he was just upstairs and heard her piano playing. He then questions if she recalls anything new about the incident, but Sofia says no. Mills reveals that Veronique was pregnant before she died, leaving Sofia in shock. After the detective leaves, she heads outside, and soon meets a man named Neil, who turns out to be her adoptive father. Neil asserts that she needs to disappear, because Detective Mills is a dedicated man, who will soon uncover her real name and background. However, Sofia refuses, and suddenly insists that she must take revenge on Radic first. It is then revealed that she is a victim of the Bosnian War, and her whole family was killed on Radic's orders. Neil, who rescued her from the war and gave her a new life, has remained her guardian since. Here, Sofia hands a USB drive to Neil, saying that it's definitely something important, as Radic killed his daughter over it. She tells him to try liquid gold as the password. Meanwhile, we learn that Mark is keeping an eye on them from a distance. Later, on the way home, Sofia is suddenly kidnapped by a group of thugs. Inside the van, they begin torturing her, demanding to know where the USB is. Sofia denies having it, but they don't believe her. And then all of a sudden, the van is attacked. It turns out to be Mark again, and he brutally beats up all of the thugs, and manages to rescue Sofia from the dangerous situation. In the aftermath, Mark urges Sofia to give him the USB drive, so he can help her, but she once again claims to know nothing about it. Mark knows she's lying because he saw her earlier with Neil, speaking in Bosnian. He asks if this is revenge against Radic for his war crimes, but Sofia denies this as well. Just then, Mark is attacked by one of the thugs from earlier, but he stabs him with a knife. Mark immediately walks away while the police arrive to help the blind woman. Later, we see Sofia in a hospital bed, and Neil comes to visit her. He reveals that he's very sick, and won't survive much longer. He thus returns the USB, confirming that the password was correct. Neil claims that the USB contains all the information needed to take down Radic's operation. He also explains that Veronique was betraying her father by passing on this critical information to the Russians. However, she wasn't working alone, and two aliases named Cerebro and Zlato were communicating with each other. Zlato, which means gold in Bosnian, was Veronique, and now they just need to find Cerebro, which means silver. After the old man leaves, Sofia gets up and sneaks out of the hospital. When she arrives home, she notices that her family picture is missing from the frame. But then she hears sad music coming from the cafe, which she had asked the musician to play in case Mark was nearby. Moments later, the musician approaches Mark with Veronique's shawl, claiming that Sofia has invited him to meet her. Soon enough, Mark arrives at Veronique's apartment. Here Sofia begins talking about her childhood, and reveals that she once had a sister. Sofia describes how her father used to blindfold her sister, and teach her to play the piano, so that both of his daughters would be equal, and share the same pain. After saying this, Sofia blindfolds Mark, and the two end up making love. Afterward, Sofia opens up that she's from Bosnia, and that her parents knew Radic from long ago, as they were neighbors. But one fateful day, the Serbian military came, and brutally killed her entire family, with Radic as their commander. She was the only one who survived the massacre. She suddenly shifts the conversation, admitting that she heard the noises upstairs that night, and questions who sent Mark to kill Veronique. Mark responds that it was his sister, but clarifies that he did not kill Veronique. He was just trying to persuade her to flee, but she became agitated and jumped off the balcony. Upon hearing this, Sofia states that she wants to meet Alex alone. The next day, the two women come face to face in an art museum. Sofia hands over the USB drive, and Alex returns the family picture, but it's obvious that both of them have already made copies of it. Sofia then reveals that she knows Alex was working with Veronique to betray Radic. Her full name is Alexandra Gordon, and her initials, AG, represent the chemical symbol for silver, also known as cerebro in their language. The revelation scares Alex, and she asks the blind woman what she wants. And Sofia's demand is straightforward: she wants to be with Radic alone, at Veronique's funeral tomorrow. But the next day, Alex decides to play the villain once again. She meets with Radic and shows him Sofia's family portrait, which reveals her real background. After the funeral, Radic approaches Sofia, and takes her to his car for a private conversation. He mentions that everyone here wants to kill him, but they can't change the past. Suddenly, Sofia pulls out a knife to attack him, but he stops her. Radic then drops a bombshell. Back in their village, he once assaulted Sofia's mother, but she never told anyone about it. She later gave birth to a child, and Radic knew that he was the father. This revelation shocks Sofia, as it means she is the sick man's biological daughter. Furthermore, Radic reveals that when the war broke out, he returned to the village, and assaulted Sofia's mother again, before ultimately killing her. As the blind woman processes this, Radic suddenly attempts to kill her. In desperation, Sofia reveals that someone close to him is betraying him, and this person is called Cerebro. She then opens the car door and makes a desperate escape through the crowd of protesters. Following this, she calls Neil, but is devastated to learn that he passed away the previous night. However, The person on the other end reveals that Neil had made all the arrangements for Sofia to escape the country. Elsewhere, Alex meets with Radic, who tells her that he's going to get rid of the blind girl tonight. He suddenly asks her to sign some documents, and then Radic notices her signature, and comments on how simple it is, just AG, which stands for Cerebro. Alex now realizes that Radic has figured out the truth. Panicked, she later meets with Mark, claiming Radic knows everything and will kill her. But Mark calmly tells her to go to the airport and try to escape. He states that he will go to Sofia, and help her since she is in danger. Alex pleads with him for help, insisting they are bound by blood, but Mark refuses, as he holds her responsible for the death of his unborn child. After he leaves, a distraught Alex gets into the car that will take her to the airport. But then, at the same time, Radic arrives at Sofia's apartment, and remarks on how ironic it is that two of his daughters lived in the same building, and both were plotting to kill him. Without wasting time, he launches an attack on Sofia, and overpowers her despite her best efforts to resist. Outside, Mark shows up, and engages in a fight with two henchmen. After a difficult battle, he eventually subdues the second guy, and makes his way inside. Meanwhile, Radic is about to choke Sofia to death. Sofia grabs a glass to hit him, but Mark appears and pushes him off the balcony, where Radic is impaled on an iron gate. In the aftermath, Sofia is furious because she wanted to kill Radic herself, but Mark argues that she would have regretted it for the rest of her life. She then quickly rushes to help him as she notices that he is mortally wounded in his gut. Well, this leaves Mark in shock, as Sofia accidentally reveals that she was faking her blindness all along. Through a flashback to her childhood, we learn that Sofia's sister was the one who was blind, but she died during the massacre. Ever since then, Sofia assumed her sister's identity, pretending to be blind for years to maintain the deception. At this point, Mark decides to take all the blame for Radic's death, as he is already a wanted criminal. But he claims that he doesn't want to see her leave, so Sofia places Veronique's shawl over his eyes before fleeing the scene. The cops arrive at the apartment moments later, and Detective Mills sees Sofia on the street, but does nothing to stop her. As the movie concludes, Sofia recalls good times she had with her family. Okay guys, thanks for watching. See you again in the next video.